Now you'll also find inside of our documentation is our new API reference located up here in the top left. And when you pull this up, you'll see a fresh, new, modern look and feel, along with many new APIs for you to interact with. One here that we're seeing is the user API, membership and management APIs, as well as organization management APIs. We have a security API for rolling over your API token, in case you want to do that programmatically. Coming down into data sources, some often requested APIs around managing data sources are here for you to start to play around with and use. Also, we have down here a little bit more in managing state, right, with the API. Some open API specific APIs are available now. And a couple of key things I want to point out to you as you explore this new documentation and maybe even practice using it, using the built-in sandbox here. First and foremost, you'll notice there is a little drop down here. It can be a little bit difficult to see, so I won't expand that for us right now. But I want you to notice that there is a little drop-down box here. We have our authorization drop-down here. It's currently populated with my API tokens. Your documentation website will default to this wmc.wiremockapi.cloud fully qualified domain name. And you'll see that replicated over here in the example code as you look at that. So if we were to go ahead and send this request to the API, we'll get an answer back right now. Now, remember I told you my authorization token is currently hidden underneath this little box here. Well, my email address certainly isn't docs@example.com. It's dan@wiremock.io. So the number one thing to recognize is by default, you are going against a mock API that is a pseudo replacement for the real API. We've done this on purpose so that you don't mistakenly do anything to your account while you're using the practice calls in here. So you are by default going against a mock API. So do not expect the answers to be what you'd expect inside of your own account because you're getting stubbed responses. If you want to go ahead and start to send these requests to the real API, you can utilize this little drop down here to switch over to the live API endpoint for WireMock Cloud, which, as many of you know, is api.wiremock.cloud. You'll see that's also updated our example documentation over here. Another interesting thing to point out to you is if we were to come down to our stub mappings here, and we take a look at one of these stub mappings, I want you to notice the path of these APIs. For many of you that have been using the APIs for a while, you might recall that when you were making calls against an existing mock API, you were typically using an __admin style of path that went against the mock API's fully qualified domain name. The new approach that we are hoping all of our customers switch over to is actually going through the real API endpoint. Again, that is the api.wiremock.cloud endpoint, in which case you will now specify the mock API ID inside of the path. So this is a fundamental change to the way that we interact with existing mock APIs. We no longer want to be using the __admin style of API, and instead switch to going to the main API endpoint and specifying the mock API ID inside of the path of the API request.